talk to me about the idea of who we can become. What is it you want us to believe?
Yeah. My biggest hope, prayer, intention is that each person closes this book and is better able to hear their own gut and trust themselves. And what I mean by that is, I think what Jay-Z said is so right? But I also think it's not a victory, because we're told so many times, keep going, don't give up. Like since the time we're little kids, we watch, even if we don't play sports, we watch movies and kids are taught, just don't quit, don't give up. I actually think it's a failure if we don't ever learn how to tune in and hear our own gut and our truth and our calling, and then we just keep going and don't give up anyway, and we're not on the right path. And what I mean by that is, since the time I was a little girl, I'd watch Oprah in my living room, and I just had this knowing, oh, I want to interview other people. Like my whole instincts, Tom, I literally just want to ask you questions right now about you and Lisa, who I'm obsessed with, and like that's my who I am, right? I love other people's stories. And so I knew that's what I always wanted to do for my career. So, eventually that's what I did. I was working as a journalist. I was working as a television news anchor. And when I got that problem, and I mentioned earlier, that skin problem, I was at this moment in time. And I think, hopefully everyone in Impact Theory community, like wherever you're at in life right now, at this very moment, I believe everyone has a knowing inside of them. I don't think it matters if they have a faith or no faith. I don't think it matters any of that. I think everyone universally has a knowing or a truth inside. And I think most people never learn how to get still and hear it. And most people, if they do get still and hear it, they're going to know right now, live, while they're listening to you and me, are they in the right job they're supposed to be in? Or are they playing it small? Are they in the right relationship? Or are they in it and dimming their own light because of fear that maybe they'll be alone? We all have a knowing, right? And, what I'll say about the idea of giving up, leveling up, all of that, I think it's so important that, in that moment where I had and again, let me just say, there's so much I did wrong, and I share all that stuff too. But one of the things I did right was when I had this gut feeling as I'm sitting there with this skin problem, this gut feeling, oh, you're supposed to figure out how to create a beauty company. Even though I knew nobody in the beauty industry, had no connections, had very little money because television news does not pay very well. I had that knowing, right? And yet I was sitting there in my dream job. Like that was my dream job since the time I was a little kid. So I think sometimes like knowing when to let go of a dream, knowing when to quit is actually a victory too. It's actually as important as when to keep going, right? And so with Jay-Z's quote, the genius thing we did was we didn't give up. I think that applies only if someone hears their truth and says, all right, I have this knowing I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And when I look back at this journey of 3 years of constant rejection, down to under $1,000 in our bank account, literally getting knocked down over and over from all of these beauty retailers that I put on a pedestal, and I couldn't understand why they were telling me I wasn't the right fit for them. Every time I would check in with my gut, right? And maybe so many people out there can relate to this because you feel like you're doing something you're supposed to be doing. But like for me, there was no proof around me that my idea was right. There was no traction in my business. There was nobody saying, yeah, that's a great idea. Let me buy your product. And then I'm going to the beauty retailers and they didn't believe in the brand. And everything around me was saying, you're wrong. And the easiest thing in life is to confuse that with the truth. And I think the only way we know the truth in life is when we get good at getting still and hearing that inner knowing. And so for me, every time I would get knocked down, I would just check in, get still. And it's hard sometimes because a lot of people out there, they have not heard their own gut in a long time, right? Because we have like our friends and family that are worried about us if we're, or they're seeing everything through the lens of their own life and their own fear and their own experience or lack of experience. And then we have, in my case, experts who I valued so much saying like, you're not the right fit. You're not, not literally saying no. And as you know, as I shared in so many stories in the book, they said so many other crazier things that all but basically said, like, it's not just a no now, it's a no forever. Right. But I think the victory is learning to get still and hearing your knowing and then trusting it. A lot of people don't trust themselves. And I think that is what keeps people inside their comfort zone in life, which I think when you stay in your comfort zone, it chips away at your soul. And you end up talking yourself out of your own truth and then never becoming the person you're born to be. Not to get all dramatic on impact theory, but that to me is the biggest. And listen, to me, it's not about the outcome. Oh, here's how to create $1 billion company. It's about the journey of, are you stepping into all of who you are and the person you're born to be? And how do you do that?
All right. That was amazing. But now are you ready to get into the weeds on this idea?
Let's do it.
In your book, you talk about developing your intuition. How do people develop their intuition so that when they need to turn to it and they learn to be still and listen to it, that it actually gives them good advice?
Yeah. The very first step is to pay attention, right? Listen, we are so busy in our lives right now. And so many of us with all the stuff going on with the pandemic, with this, with that, with our job, and then frankly, at the end of some days, all I want to do is scroll Instagram or like yesterday, eat candy hearts for Valentine's Day. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to like actually put in the work, but I believe that it's so important. Like if someone's going to do anything and you hear so much about morning routine or this or that or whatever, taking 5 minutes a day and just starting building that muscle. And at first it may make no sense, right? Especially because so many people are out of practice, but literally getting still, even if you have to just go sit in a closet, leave your phone out, just go sit in a closet and just see what you think. And can you hear your own truth? And another thing I would say, just as a real fundamental level, is to look back at your past, because I believe it's something we build over time if we pay attention, right? And I can say that most of my mistakes I've made when I look back is because I didn't trust my own gut and I trusted my mind instead. And my mind was able to say, oh, these are all the experts. They're experts for a reason. They're touted visionaries, and they're telling you to change this about your product packaging, or they're telling you to do this about, and they have a proven track record and you don't. So even though, Jamie, you have some gut feeling, like my mind won. And when that's happened, those are some of my biggest mistakes. And I think looking back on that's important, just to like break it down at a real fundamental level. So many of us have dated the person we know is not right for us. You know what I mean? But we know, right? And I can think of times where I was dating a guy who I was so into, and like his phone broke and he disappeared. And I knew he's lying. I knew it, but I didn't want to know it. Right? So what happens? I'm like, oh, well, it's only the first time it's ever happened. Maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe all the things, right? I know he's sketchy. I know he's lying, right? But sometimes we know, and this is such a basic example, and we just choose to not to talk ourselves out of it anyway, right? And I think that every human being can really actually just put in a little time thinking about different moments in their life and actually start to remember, like, did I have a gut feeling about this at the time, or did I not? Or, was there a time I listened to that inner knowing and I was right? Right. And we start thinking about those times, and it starts to build up our own trust in ourselves over time. And for me, this was a huge way that I was able to keep going. You mentioned one thing that I remember, Tom, after, this, we were a couple years into our business, and I had been sending our product out to all the retailers and saying, hey, I want to show models that actually have skin challenges like I do. And that had never been done before, right? And I wanted to do all these things. and they were all telling me no, and it's not the right fit. And I knew my product was really good. I learned the hard lesson a lot of entrepreneurs learn, that you can have a great product or a great course or a great service but that's not enough. Like, people have to know it exists, right? And when you have no money and no ad budget, that's really hard. And this is 2008, 2009. 2010, YouTube wasn't huge yet. So no one had gone out there and said, oh, instead of overly photoshopped, perfect skin models, let's show real people with real skin challenges and all ages and sizes and skin tones. And that's what I had this vision for, because that's what I was, and we created a product that was so good. And then after all these rejections from all the department stores, all the beauty stores saying, no, thank you, it's a pass, your product will never sell, those kind of images don't work. I had one store tell me women will only buy from an aspirational image of beauty they'll never be able to look like. If they can actually look that way, they won't buy it. And it was just like over and over and over rejection. And I'll never forget this one moment, just to share as an example, because it helped me develop my intuition muscle so strongly. But we had gotten an inbound call from a potential investor, and they were a really well-known private equity company, and they invested in a lot of consumer products in the grocery stores, like household names that we buy. They loved our product. And so we started taking meetings with them, and I was so freaking excited, because I felt like, oh my gosh, if they invest in us, then maybe they'll use their leverage to get us into these retailers, and also I won't go bankrupt, and all those things. And there's that. And so we did meetings. We started the diligence phase. We presented product pipelines, all that stuff. And it got down to the last meeting, and my husband and I flew there for the meeting. And it was the head guy. He was standing about 3 feet from me. And I thought it was going to be like the best day of my life, right? And I'll never forget, he was 3 feet away, and he says to me, I just don't think women, well, he said, it's a no, we're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And like, I'd heard no thousands of times, right? So I'm like devastated, but I'm like, okay, can you share why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he says, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I said, yes. And he literally was 3 feet from me, and he said, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. And I remember when he said that to me, a bunch of things happened. The first thing was I remember feeling like my whole body fled with like a lifetime of body issues, body doubt and self-doubt. And I felt all that. So it kind of felt like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye, talking to him. I never felt anger toward him. I felt hurt and crushed. But I also got this feeling. I'll never forget this, Tom. I'll never forget this the rest of my life. I got this feeling, like literally in my gut, like a knowing he's wrong. Even though I was still doubting myself, even though I had dealt with like a lifetime of body doubt, I got this feeling he's wrong. And I remember that feeling, because I remember then for a few years wondering, like, am I right or is he right? I would still doubt myself, right? And I went out in my car and I cried, and I had to figure out, how do I turn down the volume in my own head and not replay those hurtful words over and over and over? But I also remember that feeling I got. And this is a big business thing, not to be off topic, but like one of the things I did do right was I never took rejection personally in business, right? I always figured out how to go, okay, like if this is a game of chess, maybe we will partner one day. So I'm just going to pretend we are with every retailer, and I'm just going to keep sending them product and keep sending them updates and keep telling them I can't wait till I'm in your store, no matter how bad that rejection hurt. And in his case, what I realized also was, oh, okay, the reason I'm creating this company, I want to try to shift culture and beauty. I want to try to use different images of models. And he's literally passing on investing in my company because he is just as much influenced by a lifetime of seeing beauty images too. So he believes also, whether he realizes it or not, you have to look a certain way to sell product. And the last thing I'll say about that is I do believe in that famous saying that like rejection's God's protection, right? And you could say rejection's the universe's protection. I do believe in sayings like that. And when you fast forward 6 years later, the day that L'Oreal bought It Cosmetics, it was all over the Wall Street Journal homepage. It was everywhere online because they're a public company. So that means for them, they decided to release the purchase price, everything. I got an email from that guy, from that investor. I got an email that day that said, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. I was wrong. But the other thing, when I talk about like rejection is God's protection, I really believe that, because even though we don't see it at the time and it doesn't make sense at the time, but like, I was so desperate, Tom, I would have probably given him the majority of the company for like almost no money. And because he didn't believe in us, and because so many people rejected us along the way, by the time we did sell our business to L'Oreal, we're still the largest shareholders. So it was like, there's so many situations like that. But anyhow, that deep knowing, that knowing he's wrong, that's an example of, okay, looking back over time, where did I make mistakes and where did I do things right? And then we refine that muscle of learning, oh yeah, learning to trust ourselves.
There's so much in that is extraordinary. We're now going to test my abilities as an interviewer to see if I can tease out some of the things that you talk about in the book to put a capstone on this idea of training your intuition. So I have a deep and abiding fear of being spiritual entertainment. People will be moved by you. They will be moved by your story. But if they're very careful and they pay close attention, it will change how they move through the world, certainly as a person just pursuing goals, but potentially even as somebody who wants to start their own business.
So let's talk about the gut then, because there's multiple things that you just said there that all you've led back to the gut. And in hindsight, everyone listening and watching are going, well done for trusting your gut. But there are many times that, at least for me, I've trusted my gut and I was wrong. And I've learned my lesson and then I move on. So I want to start with you're a news anchor, you've got the blotches, nothing was working for you, you're going to try your own. What made you trust your gut in that sense? Because like you said, you had college debt, so you have all this stuff that's stacked against you. It's based on beauty, which for women is very emotional. So how did you keep going and like try to find the solution instead of just hide away? Like, what are the things that you told yourself that pushed you to keep going and trust your gut that this was the right path for you?
I've always had this feeling deep down inside, like I'm meant to do great things that help other people.
Interesting.
I've always kind of just known it. Even when I took the low-paying job to learn journalism instead of like a super high-paying, consultant or banking job, I just feel like if we get one life, I want to, like, the day I die, which God willing, it's a long time in the future, like I want to literally know there's nothing left in me that could have been used to help someone else.
And you felt that even back when you were the news anchor? Wow. So because I actually didn't feel like that.
No?
I do now.
You do now,
I feel like
so you
now,
know
like
it, right? That
my
feeling.
purpose of all the failures that I've had, all the problems, all the health issues, my purpose now is to speak it so that it can help other people.
And
but
it
back,
does.
But back when I
And thank you.
started, it didn't. It was actually, if I can be so honest, it was out of pure ego. So when people told me you can't do it, you're not good enough to do it, you're dumb, you're stupid, what are you doing, you're not talented, I was just stubborn enough to say, I can do it. I'm going to prove them wrong. And it was out of stubbornness, not out of like, I want to share it with the world, that actually pushed me to then show myself what I was capable of.
So you were driven by ego because you're like, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Exactly. Then I realized, wow, I'm actually did do it and I'm kind of capable. And so then it's like, well, if you're capable, what else can you do? And so that became the foundation of then, okay, maybe I have a superpower. So if I have a superpower now, how am I going to help others? So it kind of became a transition for me versus then just an initial, like, from the beginning. So that's why it's really impressive that you felt that even before you had any validation that you can do it or that you have the ability to do it.
Yeah, I've always had that feeling. And it's funny that you say this. I've definitely done things for ego. I have definitely done things for ego. And most of the time when I do that, I regret it. It doesn't feel right, right? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I do stuff on ego and it turns out great and whatever, but it's like, it doesn't compare to that feeling of knowing you're doing something bigger than yourself. I feel like when you spend the time to really think about your why and why you're doing it, why or how it's bigger than yourself, that will sustain you through so many hard times, right? Because just hearing some of what you're sharing, I'm having flashbacks even to so many of the hard times, even once we finally got yeses and finally we're on QVC and all of that, when you're putting in 100-hour weeks and when stuff doesn't go your way and all that, and when your why is bigger than yourself, it sometimes it's like that's the only thing that gets you through those hard times and keeps you going. Because sometimes if it's just for ourselves or our own ego, it's not a strong enough why. When you are so burnt out and you feel defeated and you feel like self-doubt's entering your mind, it's like money isn't a strong enough why, because you can go get another job and get money. You know what I mean? It's like really peeling back the layers on what you're doing and really getting to that true why that means so much to you. And for some people, it's, I'm going to change this generation of my family. Where I come from is not where I'm going. I'm not going to have my children go through what I went through, right? And that why is huge. It doesn't have to be a why to go change the outside world. It might be a why to change inside your own home. And sometimes just like not giving up and just keeping going is the difference too in making it. You know what I mean?
Oh, so how do you do that then when you're in a moment?
Yeah.
So you've got your why, very strong why.
Yes.
You're going to impact women and how they feel about themselves. It's not just like you want to make them super glamorous. It's like you're going to change how they feel about themselves. And that can lead to so many incredible things, being a better mother, being a better wife, being a better employee, a better business owner, whatever it is. I think that can really lead to something.
Yeah.
So you've got your strong why. Now, you've got your strong why, but you only have $1,000 left.
Yes, I know.
Is the why strong enough to get you through it? Or was there something else that you had to do to tell yourself, like, no, keep going? Because that's where people go like, all right, look, at some point, if something is failing, at some point you have to let it go.
Yeah. So two things. So for me, and this is so personal to everyone and to what they believe in. For me, faith is huge in my life, and I feel like I hear my faith through my gut feelings. I really do. And there were nights where I was just like, is this what we're supposed to do? That combined with really freaking hard work and like, let's just keep it really real, because sometimes, and I don't know how we're going here to Denny's and all the really real stuff, but what I love about it is, if any of your community has heard any of my story before, they've probably just heard the $1 billion fairy tale. And the real of it is, when we were under $1,000, we were trying to get SBA loans from anyone that would give one. No one would give one, and they shouldn't have, because it's like, you're trying to show a business plan for projected sales when you don't even have any. We were doing 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, but you know what? It's a choice. I chose, instead of having a job that paid me a salary, I chose to be an entrepreneur. And it's like, okay, but you got to hustle, and you got to, sometimes that's what you have to just do.
Because you didn't take like a day off, right? You guys, you and your husband worked like 100-hour work week, 7 days a week for 10 years.
For 10 years.
And I think like you said, it's important to stress that. You freaking busted your ass.
Yeah, we did. And it was like when we got down to $1,000, we went and spent part of it on IKEA desks to put in the living room, because we had an in-person office tour with California Bank and Trust, which was the last bank that was going to consider giving us an SBA loan. And but that, we got the last person said yes on the SBA loan, which kept us alive a little bit longer. We were still only doing the 2 to 3 orders a day from our website, and right around that time we got a first yes finally for QVC, but we had one shot and only 10 minutes. And
you'd been going after QVC for a long time,
going
right?
after him for a long time and always hearing no. I remember, oh my gosh, like the number of no's from everybody. And so there is a guy named Alan Burke who was like the head of beauty at QVC, and he got all of those like really high-end department store beauty brands to really want to go on QVC and all the designer brands. And so he was the head of all of it. And I remember one day I finally got, I think it was a call from his assistant saying he wants to have a call with you. He's reviewed your product. And I like thought this was going to be our big break. And he was very quick, and he said, I reviewed your product with our buyers and you're not the right fit for QVC. I'm sorry, and I wish you the best of luck. And I just remember crying myself to sleep that night. And just, have you ever like had something happen where, that goes wrong or doesn't go your way, and then like the next day you wake up and you like hoped it was a dream?
Yes.
And then you're like, it wasn't.
You have to relive it almost, yes.
Yes.
So for you, in those moments, you're hearing no over and over again. Most people would have stopped at number 1.
Yeah.
A lot of people would have stopped at number 2. Majority would have stopped at number 3. You kept going. This was like years and years and years of you like hounding Sephora and QVC. And so what is it? Is it just your innate ability to get back up? Or did you have to coach yourself in your mind to say, no, you believe in this, remember your why? Like, what does that actually look like?
Both. I feel like when I look back on things, and this is what I love, it's like even if you're in a space right now in your life where you're like, this isn't where I want to be, I would just trust it, because I look back at like when I was a news anchor, I would get emails that were so mean, like, are you pregnant? Are you, right? I had a news director at one of my jobs that would just tear me to shreds, appearance-wise, stuff like that. And I really feel like it helped me get really strong, so that rejection started to hurt a little less, but it still hurts. But resiliency is like the most important skill, I think. I think what's tricky is going, okay, am I putting good money after bad, right? Which is like a famous saying, meaning, does every sign tell me this is a bad idea? And do I keep wasting my time and money? You know what I mean? That's the hardest thing to know, especially when you're building your business. And for me, the deciding factor for me was praying about it and realizing that I needed to keep my faith bigger than my fear, because I just felt in my gut what I was doing mattered and it was needed. I think fear kills more dreams than like almost anything else. Self-doubt and fear, I think, kills more dreams than almost anything. I was reading that famous Jay-Z quote where he says, the genius thing we did was we never gave up. And it's like, it's so true sometimes. And what's crazy is I would have saved myself so many nights of crying myself to sleep had I known what I know now, which is just that if you're doing something novel or that's different, that hasn't been done before, of course, all these people that are experts aren't going to get it right away, because it's never been done before. So there's no proof out there that tells them, oh yeah, this is a good idea, or oh yeah, this is gonna succeed in your stores, or it's never been done before. So I shouldn't have been surprised that all these people that I thought were like, they would know if, they're gonna see our product and like love it right away. And the other thing I learned was by persistence and by not letting those no's destroy every ounce of confidence I had, and every single person that told us no has now told us yes. But some of them told us no for years and many, many, many times. And here's the crazy thing, and I don't know the answer to this, but what I do know, Lisa, is had I listened to a lot of the ways they told me to change our product or change our positioning, had I listened to that, I don't think our brand would have worked. I don't think I'd be sitting here having sold it to L'Oreal, because L'Oreal has a lot of other great brands that do what's already been done really well. They're the best at it in the world. Had I not done something totally different that went against what all these other experts were saying to do, I wouldn't have created something of value that complemented their portfolio. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's Peter Diamandis. I think he said this. The day before a breakthrough, it's just another dumb idea. And it's like, it's so true. Because you're getting no's a million times. You're also telling people, people are being mean. Like in my intro, I said, someone said to you, who's ever going to buy makeup from you? Yeah. So again,
that was one of the toughest things I've ever dealt with in my own head. Because what had happened was, so we had no money, as you know, as we've covered. And this this investor who he had invested in a lot of consumer product companies. So he had a big, he was the head of a big private equity firm, and a lot of companies I love were his products that he had invested in and sold.
Okay.
And we finally got a meeting with him, and he was super interested.
So it's someone you're super excited about.
Yes.
Someone you're
Yes.
amped about. Someone
Have a
you
lot
admire,
of respect for.
respect.
Yes.
Okay, makes
Yes.
it even worse.
I know, and they loved our idea of what we were doing with our products of their company. I'm like, this is amazing, because if they invest in us, then we're not gonna go bankrupt tomorrow, and B, maybe they can help us get into these retail stores. And like, I was so excited. And then I'll never forget this. In person, this guy was like 1.5 feet from me, and they said, we've decided to pass on the investment. It's a no. And I said, well, can you share with me a little bit why? Because feedback's always a gift, even when we don't want to hear it. And he said, well, do you want me to be honest with you? And I said, yes. And he goes, I'm not sure if women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you, with your body and your weight, is what he said to me. And I remember looking at him and just like, while I tried to handle it with grace and just say, thank you for your feedback, I knew so strongly in my gut in that moment. So it was this combination of being hurt, really obviously hurt, but I just had this strong gut feeling that said, he's wrong. Like, he's wrong. And sometimes you just need to like bust out Google and just inspire yourself. So I remember after he said that, just for myself, I would look up so many of the people I admire most, who I think are just making huge changes in the world. And I would ask myself, if they changed their body, would they do better? No. Like, if they got all skinnier, got all whatever it is, like, people that change the world, what they look like, I think is irrelevant. I think it's how they feel, it's their heart, it's their intentions. And I would just, fill myself up with stuff like that, just to get myself back to that place of confidence again. And when we finally, so here's the thing, we got to a beauty show, this big beauty show in New York City. There are 6,000 women there. And they walk the show. And what happens in the show, this is how we got on QVC, by the way. If you're a brand that's had a new product launch that year, you can pay money to go there. You get a 3-foot table and you demonstrate your product. And so we had signed up to do it. And the hope by doing this is that the 6,000 women walking and testing out all the new products, that one of them will, work for a department store and get you in there, or one of them will, or they'll vote on your product and you'll get one of the awards. And so we were there doing that, and QVC had a huge booth there. And you're supposed to stay, you're not allowed to leave your 3-foot table, but I kept like trying to sneak away to see like if there were the buyers at the QVC booth, and I'd rush back to my table. And what I didn't realize is one of the women that I'd been showing the product to was a QVC show host, and I didn't recognize her and at the time, and I don't know if I was just spacing out or what. And so I was showing her the product and like telling her how much, why it exists and why it's different and special. And she said, my name is Miss Lisa Mason. I'm a QVC show host. And I just looked at her and she goes, I want you to know, I think your concealer is really special, and I think our women at home, our QVC gals, they would love this product. And I want you to know, I just went and told the buyer, I think we should have your product on. And I looked at her, and tears just started streaming down my face, and I think I freaked her out. She's like, oh, sugar, I don't have any, like, she's like, oh, what did I just say?
Yeah,
she's like,
yeah,
I don't have any power to get I just want to let you know I did this, I believe in you. And I was like, thank you. And I was like, can I send you product?
Aww.
She's like, no, sugar, but I just want to let you know. So long story short, we got a meeting at QVC, and we got a yes. But what that meant was we have 10 minutes, one airing of 10 minutes, and you either hit their sales goal or you don't come back, right? And what I know now that I didn't know at the time is you might have 10 minutes, but if you're live on the air and you're not hitting numbers, all of a sudden your clock will go from 10 to 6. And then you're like, and you can't panic, and you have to have fun, and you can't try to sell, because the second you try to sell, nothing sells.
Nothing sells.
Nothing sells. So, and it'll be at 6 minutes, and like if it's really not doing well, it cuts to 2. And what's so hard is you're live on national television, and in the back of your head, I just lost a product, or I just lost, like, it's so much pressure. Thankfully, I didn't know that part in the first airing, but what I did know was we had 10 minutes and we had to hit a sales target or never come back. And we needed to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer in that 10-minute window. And I just felt like, okay, if women can see this live on television, how it works, like, and they can see how it will, you know, change their lives, I can show it live on TV. And I just felt like this is it. And then here's where this appearance stuff resurfaced, right? And for any woman out there or man who struggles with, like, do what I look matter? Does my weight matter? Does my size matter? Do my clothes matter? It sucks when sometimes things all around us tell us they do, right? And this is a moment where I had to make a decision where everything was on the line for my business. And what had happened, Lisa, was we had met with, there's all these outside consultants, and they help a lot of people do well on television. And, you know, they'll give you advice, like, here's how you know, do your demonstrations, and here's the type of models to use, and here's, you know, what to say and not to say. And when I met with all the consultants, they all told me I needed to do this formula to work on air, which was cast only perfect skin models, all like the same age and skin tone and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but I want to show my bright red rosacea and show how this works for me. And I want to show real women that are different ages and have different skin problems. And I want women all across the country that have never seen a model who looks like them and skin that looks like theirs. I want to show them live why I made this product. And every single consultant said that will not work. And if I want to have any chance of succeeding in my business, that I will do what they're saying, which is to do the formula, the only formula that had ever worked in beauty. And it was the most stressful probably moment of my whole career and decision of my whole career, because everything was on the line.
Yeah, break it down, and then how you decided to just ignore them and do your own thing, because like you said, everything's on the line. What did that process look like for you, where you said, they're experts, but I'm still not going to listen? So I was freaking out. I flew out to QVC a week early. I love the honesty, by the way. That's
oh my gosh. And it's so funny. Because we had no money, so I took this, it was like 3 or 4 connections, because it was the cheapest way to get to Philly. I got there, I was in a rental car, and I drove to the QVC parking lot every single day for a week, and I sat there, literally trying to envision what was gonna happen in that 10 minutes, almost like the way I imagine Olympic athletes envision success. And I just knew in that moment, like, I knew what I needed to do. I knew that if I went on QVC and did what everyone else had done, maybe my business would have succeeded at that time. But it wouldn't have been authentic to who I am. I'm not a makeup artist. I don't do makeup artist looks on people. It's not why I created the brand. It's not my why. So I would have been putting money and fear above the why I did this. And I just remember sitting in the parking lot and knowing, even if I try and I go out there and I show my bare face, which is the last thing I want to do on national television, showing my bright red rosacea, but it wasn't about me. It was about, I wanted to shift culture and beauty. I wanted there to be models that look like real women. I imagine real women all across the country who have forgotten that they're beautiful and have forgotten that they matter. And I realized in that moment, if I don't sell and we miss the sales goal, at least for that 10 minutes, there will be women that turn their television on and they see models, aspirational models, who I'm standing on television calling beautiful, that look like them. And I'm showing women with skin problems and issues, and I want them to know we're all in this together, like, we've all got this. But it was so scary. And I remember the camera goes live, the clock's at 10 minutes, and I remember it started counting down. And and I had this demonstration planned. on my wrist, right, with where I put these two beautiful department store concealers that are top sellers and ours, and I would bend my wrist and show, they start breaking up and cracking, right? And ours doesn't, which is why it would cover my rosacea. So I had this thing planned and I started doing it, but I was so stressed out. TV, I'm not nervous for. It was the business, the weight of everything. And my hand was like this. And I was like,
just like shaking like crazy.
And I was trying to show, and finally Lisa's like, thank you, sugar. And she shoves my hand under the podium that we're presenting from. And I remember at the 10-minute mark, literally the 10-minute mark, the sold out sign came up. And I just looked at Lisa and I just started crying. Because I was like, it was like real women had spoken. I'm so glad I listened to my gut.
Do you believe that your optimism allows this all to work? Because if you are looking at losses as in, well, this was meant to be part of my journey and this scar is actually attractive, because that's how I think about it. I think about all those losses as scars and like that scar giving you character and that's attractive. Do you believe that optimism was an incredibly big factor and ingredient in your success?
I think optimism is great. I think though that knowing why we're doing what we're doing, listening to our gut and going after our calling, like literally living our calling, I think that's the victory.
Hold on though.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question. Every human needs levels of affirmation along the way to sustain that. Right?
Yeah.
And so in the beginning where you're not seeing those results, for many, and you might have, I've always seen results pretty quickly in my good calls. So I always try to think about someone who's not seeing it. So because they don't have optimism, they have delusion and they think they're going to be, Beyonce when they can't sing, right? Do you feel like believing in your calling gets affirmed along the way? What do you rely on in that beginning? Don't you think blind faith is actually completely grounded in optimism?
I mean, for me, my faith is a huge part of my life.
I'm going to take religion as faith out. I'm saying I'm just thinking about you, young you in this moment, and I'm really fascinated by it. I'm meant to do this because what you're talking about is what I love, which is the journey.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get into your. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think the victory is the outcome, right? I don't think the victory. Listen, I know how accomplished you are and everything. I know you're going to have the New York Jets one day. I know all that. But I don't think that's the victory. I think the victory is the journey of actually like stepping into all of who you are and not talking yourself out of your own truth. And what I mean by that is this journey that we're talking about, right? Of course, optimism, of course, resiliency to get back up every time you're knocked down. Of course, all those things. But I think that so many people listening right now, if they don't ever learn to get still and hear their own truth and hear their own intuition, I think what's going to happen, and this is what happens to most people, is they end up staying in their comfort zone. They end up putting their own immediate failures on a pedestal or other people's opinions or self-doubt. They end up talking themselves out of their own truth. And then they end up never actually becoming the person they're born to be. So for me, I don't think like the fact that I was able to build $1 billion company is the victory. I think the moments of me knowing this is what I'm supposed to do and trusting it, even when it doesn't make sense. And I'll give you one example, okay, of this. So, and maybe this will make sense because optimism, of course, is important, and I know what you're saying. But I think the biggest thing is learning how to hear yourself and trust yourself. I really believe that. There was a moment
how do you define that as a term? Because I view that as self-belief and confidence and optimism. I think that you're such a, very quickly I'm like, oh, this is my sister. Like literally within the first 3 seconds, I'm like, oh, I see. So I'm trying to do, and I apologize because I'm hoping a different voice might do this for the listener. I'm trying to figure out what words you use to quantify. I fully agree with you, everything you're saying. I'm wondering if you view optimism as, so I think optimism, similar to what we were talking about earlier, sometimes gets pegged as delusion.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about, you see where I'm going? Because I could almost feel you doing that right now. And I'm like, I get you, sister. Because like this isn't why it's so great. Wordsmithing matters, right? Like, for example, hustle has gotten demonized as like burnout. So I no longer use it. because I don't need it. You know what I'm going to call it? Work ethic. Call it what you want. Here's what I can tell you. For all the belief you had and all the love you had in doing what you were doing, I'm pretty confident based on your outcome that there was a lot of work ethic there. And so whatever you want to call it, and sometimes I just think about, I know the word hustle triggers people, so I use the word work ethic now because I don't want to ever not let anybody who cares to listen to me not realize that if you don't put in the work, it is impossible. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just had a big aha moment that what you're saying is optimism. I a billion% agree with. And I'm thinking of that right now as belief. Same thing. Yep. And now I'm right there with you. Like, here's the thing and then I want to share one quick story with you too, that hopefully someone listening right now maybe needs to hear. But I mean, when I look back, it's like when people are like, oh, how did you start with close to nothing and build $1 billion company? It's like, yeah, I got back up every time I got knocked down, and I followed my gut and I worked really, really hard. But I do think that one of the most important things I did was just like how to build $1 billion company from nothing. Like, I think one of the most important things is making that decision to believe that you can.
Yes.
And for me, that's optimism, exactly what you're saying. And I guess I call it belief. So yeah, 1,000,000% with that. And one more thing, just on maybe people listening to us right now, they're like, oh, Gary, like Jamie, I trust my gut sometimes and it's wrong, or I tried it once and it didn't work, or I don't know how to hear my own intuition. I just want to say, I think that it is a muscle that we can all build. And I think people have to give themselves grace, right? It reminds me of like when you start to meditate, a lot of people try it and they can't do it. They're like, they go through their to-do list in their head the whole time they're trying to meditate, but you have to like give yourself grace and start. And what I would say, whether it's entrepreneurs or someone who's 14 years old and out there dating right now, I would say when you start to look back at your experiences and think about moments when you had a gut feeling and you didn't follow it. Like, we've all dated like a sketchy guy or or had a, and like, you're like, his phone didn't really just like shut off for 3 days, or he didn't lose the phone. He went like, and then you kind of make that decision of like, okay.
Talk to me about, I mean, we are really vibing here. I actually want to talk to you offline because I just have had the thought. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm so excited.
Okay.
Insecurity.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, to me, like thinking to my friends that were girls that were dating guys that I knew what the guys were doing, which was they were preying on my friends' insecurities, and sometimes brilliant, beautiful girls. And I'm like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
This woman, you really triggered something in me. This woman, I'm thinking about 4 or 5 friends through the last 20 years. This woman is subjectively, and if we had 100 people ask, is 1,000,000 miles better than this man. This man has figured out the cheat code that if he makes her feel insecure, he has the leverage. Thoughts?
Yep. I think that happens every single day. And I think that we look for people that treat us how we believe we deserve to be treated. Like we find partners that need it.
So you go with, cool, before you worry about jerk off Johnny, this is a big game of your own lack of self-love towards you.
It's your own lack of self-love, because here's the thing, and I don't know your friends, so I'll just say this. I'll make a general statement.
You'll appreciate this. This was mainly 17 to 25 years old, because you see that so commonly there. I mean, in later stages, people are in really deep relationships and you're in different parts of your life. When you're going through high school and college, you're spending so much time with people, you get better reads to the cleanness of the data is like, oh, this is really fucked up. When you're older, you're running in different circles, you don't really get to see it as easily.
Right. And I think that whether, no matter your age, this is what I believe. I think that when someone's treating us like crap and we stay with them, I think it's because we deep down inside don't believe we deserve better yet. And here's the thing, for people like that are dating your friend who's totally screwing them over, right? If you were to bring the best, most amazing, beautifully like kind person into their space, that same girl would probably put them in the friend zone.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, because they don't yet deep down inside believe. Yeah, they deserve more.
And also people value different things through their life. One of the things, right now we live through a generation desperately interested in blaming social media for lack of accountability. They're just pointing fingers, right? Like if you are in a good place with yourself and your perspective is strong around gratitude, an anonymous person's negative comment is not going to ruin your day.
Yeah. And I think when it does, I think that's what's so tough, right? That's when it's a reminder to ourselves, like, oh yeah, we have some more work to do. One of the things I talk about in my book, Believe It, is just that ability to learn to turn down the volume on certain things and turn up the volume on other things. Like one example, we were 3 years into building the company, right? I was hearing no from everyone, Gary, like from all the retailers I dreamed of carrying our products that I used to shop in, right? I would save my tip money, like I mentioned, as a Denny's waitress and buy products at the department stores or in
what year was this?
So we launched 2007. Like I quit my job 2007. I wrote the business plan on my honeymoon flight to South Africa with my husband. Not the most romantic way to kick off a marriage. And we both got back, quit our jobs, dove all in. I thought, Gary, and maybe so many entrepreneurs listening, I thought, oh, if I just pour everything I have and actually create a product that works, like it's just going to sell. If it's that good, it's just going to sell. And then I didn't realize it would be the hard. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs in my life, but being an entrepreneur is by far.
Well, you especially also built that brand different than building a brand today where you can use Shopify and social media to build it. You had to get a yes from Sephora, Ulta, Walmart, Walgreens, and Macy, whoever it was. And that is difficult when you're innovating the way you did. Do you know that my whole life is no? Do you know VaynerMedia? A lot of people listening don't know this. Most brands don't want to say yes to VaynerMedia. We don't want to do a commercial and then go to sleep. Like we don't want to take 12 weeks to do the perfect commercial and then do print ads that look like it or banner ads or digital programmatic. My whole life building VaynerMedia is no. Everything I do is Gary V's easy. I just do it with the audience. But VaynerMedia is exactly, I know what you're living through because when you innovate and you're doing something different and you don't look the part, you didn't work at Procter & Gamble for 13 years.
Yeah.
They're like, what's this Washington State thing? Like you know what it is.
Well, and it's wild because I would go in and start, I would pitch the product and, we were staying alive on social media. So we were getting, people were writing just blogs at that point, and we were selling like 1 to 3 orders a day on our website, and people were spreading the word. That was the only way we barely stayed alive. But all the retailers, exactly what you said. And by the way, I've learned this, like when you're doing something that's authentic or that is different, but even if it's just authentic to you, even in a crowded industry, by definition, it's novel. By definition, it's never been done before. And I really believe, looking back now at this journey and everything, I believe that like even a lot of visionaries, touted visionaries, I think they can't imagine anything being successful unless subconsciously they have proof in the back that they've already seen it and it's already worked. So it's like, of course, so many people are going to say no to your dream or doubt your dream if they've never seen it done before. And we had 3 years of every single beauty retailer saying, no, you're not the right fit. It's not going to work. You're not right for our customers. And and by the way, we talk about gut feeling. I kept having this gut feeling we're supposed to go on QVC because then I could actually like show my bright red rosacea and prove live that our product works, unlike the photoshopped ads on TV. And this is just something to share for someone who might need to hear this right now, who's having a gut feeling, but they feel like they're wrong. Like I kept having this feeling, and every time I would do a meeting with QVC, it would be a no. Every phone call I'd finally get, like I got their head guy, Alan Burke, on the phone. He's like a legend. He's responsible for building this $1 billion beauty empire on QVC. And I finally got him on a call, and I thought for sure it was going to be a yes. And because if he's taking his precious time, and it was about a minute into the call, and he said, I just need to let you know, we've reviewed your product with all the buyers. It's unanimous. It's a no. You're not the right fit for QVC. And of course, I like poured my heart out. I'm like, oh, but I am the right fit. And then we were down to under $1,000 in our bank account at that point. So I remember like crying myself to sleep. And long story short, a year later, when I finally did get a yes to go on QVC, I took this big risk that I was advised not to by consultants. And I put real women of all shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges. And I showed my own bare face and all the things that had never been done before. We sold out at the 10-minute mark. I was crying on national television because it's live. QVC is live to 100 million homes.
You knew the truth and your heart would win, not students telling you what to do?
Yeah, and listen, it was a big risk, but I feel like I know this lesson that like I know this, and now I've seen it play out with thousands of entrepreneurs over the years. But I know that authenticity alone doesn't guarantee success, but inauthenticity guarantees
I love
failure.
that. Love that.
Right?
Love that.
What did you believe was possible then? And did you learn to trust your gut then? Like, when did you start learning to trust your intuition, to hear those voices? Because I get impulses too. I get hits of what I'm supposed to do. And I think some people don't get them. So you share a lot of tips in the book, by the way. So we're not gonna be able to share everything on this interview. Read the book. Jamie shares a ton of tips in this book to help you on your journey. If you're a small business, her advice is incredible. If you're growing your business, if you're a big business, if you're a leader, if you're someone who's an entrepreneur, if you're someone who wants to be more creative, all of the chapters in that book give you nuggets of wisdom and advice and tips to help you on your journey. It's like really is for everyone, just so you know. So you're going to get some tips, but Jamie, in terms of that intuition and gut, tell us about that Denny's waitress that you were and what was possible then to you.
Yeah. So I've always felt, and I've always felt deep down inside like I was destined to serve in a big way or do something that impacted other people on all of our own journey. I always had that inkling, didn't know what it was. And working as a Denny's waitress, this is so funny. Working as a Denny's waitress, oh my gosh. So the Denny, and I was working to try and save up for school and all that, and pay my way through school. And Denny's, it's so funny how so many things teach us lessons, right? So I won't get into this too much, but like the Denny's I worked at, the kitchen was a mess in the sense that they would take an hour to get pancakes out sometimes. So I'm an introvert by nature. And I was like, oh my gosh, people are getting mad and they're leaving because it's taking an hour to get pancakes. And I'm not getting a tip. And I really need a tip because I'm trying to pay through school. And so I learned to talk to people and try to be like, and try to just connect with them and ask about their stories and that whole thing. And it probably planted a seed in me of understanding the importance of operations of a business and the right operational infrastructure. So even as a, in that whole different industry as a Denny's waitress, I really think every single thing we go through in life helps us build that foundation, right, of where we're going to be. But, in the time I was a Denny's waitress, here's really where my gut started speaking to me. And this is for everybody out there. It's never too late to start learning how to hear your own intuition, right? Most people never do. But just like faith or like anything else, I think it's never too late. I think everyone can start now. And I really think that it's a journey. It's a journey of building on experiences and then looking back and going, oh, I didn't listen to my gut there. I had that instinct and it didn't go so well. Or, oh, I decided to go against everyone else. I trusted my gut and here's what happened, right? And I think for all of us, it's every area of life. I mean, this is something a lot of your community might relate to, is like, or not, but if you've ever dated a sketchy guy or you have a friend where you're just like, I don't think they're telling me the truth. Something's not adding up. We kind of know it, right? Like so many people can hopefully relate to this at some point in their life, but they've dated someone where they're like, I don't really believe him that his phone just broke and that he just like disappeared for a day, right? I don't think he, and you can choose, we all choose like, oh, I'm just going to ignore it and I'm just going to stay in love. Or, you know what? Like, okay, I'm done. Like we all know. And I feel like we continue building those experiences in life. And then we look back on them and it's like, now I'm able, looking back on so much of this journey, I'm able to really know that some of my biggest mistakes and misjudgments and miscalculations came when I went against that inkling inside, right? And I trusted people that are touted visionaries or experts. And it's good to trust experts and visionaries, except if your deep gut inkling goes against it, because
knowing that you stayed to that through line of authenticity for you and what you're called to do is so important. And learning how to tune in and hear that can literally change the whole course of your life. And one big example of that is probably one of the greatest business lessons I've ever learned, and life lessons. And it came down to this moment where, after 3 years of hearing no's, and by the way, John, at one point, I think it was 2 years into our business, I actually was able to get, and just to share a scrappy tip for anyone out there, like really building their business who can't afford to hire people, I was like emailing everyone on LinkedIn. I would find anyone that worked at the company. I would just try to get in some way, send them products, ask them to, and I'd finally like hustled my way into a guy named Alan Burke, who was the head of Olive Beauty at QVC. He had built this multi-billion dollar beauty industry there, department there. And I got through to his assistant, and I begged her to like have him look at our product and get us meetings and all those things in front of the buyers. And anyways, long story short, I got a call saying he is going to take a call with me and he's reviewed the products. And I thought, oh my gosh, this head of everything, Alan Burke, if he's going to spend his precious time like calling me, it's going to be good. Right. And I was so excited. And I was pacing around waiting for the call in our office, which was our living room. And Paula was there, and I was like, I was freaking out. He called. And right when I answered the phone, obviously I was like, I didn't know what we were going to do. Right. We were down to no money. I was freaking out. And I said, okay, to my head, I'm like, they're lucky to have us. He's lucky to get us, like all these things, right? Pumping myself up. And I got on the phone and he said, hello, Jamie, this is Alan Burke from QVC. And I'm like, Alan, it's so great to talk to you, and this whole thing. And anyways, he got right to the point, and he said, we've reviewed your products with all the buyers here in the beauty department, and it's unanimous that it's a no. We're going to pass on your company. You're not the right fit for QVC, and you're not the right fit for our customers, but we wish you well. And I was like, oh, but I am the right fit. And I just tried to pour into another pitch. And he thanked me for loving QVC, but said it's a no, got off the phone. Okay. So then I cried myself to sleep 3 nights in a row. If you've ever had bad news and you like wake up in the morning and you hope it was a dream, and you're like, oh, it wasn't, right? It was like that day after day after day. So fast forward another year, we're at a big beauty show, and one of the QVC hosts tried our product. There were 6,000 women there. She tried our product and said, you need to be on QVC. She told the buyer, we got one shot. We got our first big yes, but what it meant, and this is one of the greatest life lessons and business lessons I've ever learned as it pertains to trusting your gut and staying authentic to who you are. We got one shot on QVC, and here's what it meant. We got a 10-minute window to go live in front of 100 million homes and sell our product. But what it also meant was, and at the time we were selling only 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, right? Fulfilling them out of our living room, driving to the post office. So we're only selling 2 to 3 orders a day, barely staying alive. They ordered over 6,000 units of our concealer to sell in just a 10-minute window in order to hit their sales goal or not come back. And it was a consignment deal, which meant we weren't paid for any of it. And whatever sold, we got paid for, but whatever didn't sell would get shipped back to us. So it's like never, as an entrepreneur, never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose. But at this point, we were like out of options. And it just felt like, you know what, let's just go all in. So we said yes. We applied for SBA loans, and I think the first 22 banks said no. Bank number 23 gave us an SBA loan to cover just the manufacturing costs of those 6,000 units. And so literally everything was on the line. I flew out to QVC a week early. And you know how a lot of times athletes will envision themselves on the podium or landing the triple axel or scoring the touchdown. Like you visualize stuff. I flew out there a week early, and I sat in this rental car in the parking lot of QVC, which is in Pennsylvania. And I just started envisioning everything. Like I was trying to pretend I was an athlete. And I was like visualizing everything I could, like the sold out sign coming up across the screen. And here's the moment that became hard. We hired third-party consultants that are amazing at helping people succeed selling on television. And they all told me the same thing. They said, if you're going to have any shot at success, you need to use this type of model, which was the same type of model I'd seen in magazines my whole life. You need to do your sell this way. And I would argue with them. I'd say, okay, but that's not why I created the product. And also, like, what if I just like take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea on national TV so I can prove live the product works? And like, I would say like, oh my gosh, if I'm sitting at home and I am 70 years old, or I have hyperpigmentation, or this skin challenge, or this skin tone, or this skin problem, if I don't see someone that looks like me, how do I know it's going to work for me? And like, we would argue, and they wanted us to win. They wanted the best for us. And like, listen, this is the best advice we can give you. Here's what you need to do. And like, one thing I'll say is, had I realized that if you're ever going to do anything novel or new, or even it's an idea that's been done a million times, but it's your take on it, of course, experts aren't going to think it's going to work, because subconsciously they only think things are going to work that they've already seen proven work, right? And I didn't know that for a long time, and they mean so well, but they're seeing it. But even though a lot of them are visionaries, they're only able to see what you're doing through their own lens of experience. And so anyways, long story short, I didn't have a chance to do it both ways. It was like everything was on the line. And it's really easy to say, oh, I'm going to stick with authenticity in my mission. But then when you're in a moment where everything's on the line and you know you might lose your entire company, it's really hard to just tune in and trust your gut, right? Put your own gut instinct on a pedestal instead of the expert's advice. And I sat in that car for a week and I stared at the front door of the QVC building. And I knew the next time I walked through those doors, I would either walk out bankrupt or with like my whole life changed. And the more I prayed about it, I would sit there in that car, literally crying, trying to like God, take this from me, because it feels so heavy, and just tell me what to do. And it came down to a couple of things. I imagined who my customer was, and I would just kind of imagine who she is watching at home. And for some reason, I kept imagining like a single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was like too busy to remember she mattered and remember she's beautiful and that she's enough. And I just remember this moment where I was like, you know what? I would rather, if she's going to bless me with 5 seconds of her precious time, I would rather have her look up on her TV screen and see me showing real women who look like her, calling them beautiful and meaning it. Even if she buys nothing, I'd rather that happen than like me sell a ton of product and stand for nothing. And so it was like, I knew what I had to do, but it doesn't mean it's easy, right? And when the 10-minute clock started, we went live on the air. And by the way, John, when you probably know this, I didn't know this until I got there. When the 10-minute clock starts, you don't just get 10 minutes for sure. If you're a minute or two in and you're not selling enough, your clock cuts and it jumps down to 2 minutes. And you just like lost 6 minutes. And it's the most stressful thing and most high pressure thing, right? Because they don't mess around. Like you hit sales goals or that's it, which is any business. But so the 10-minute clock goes up. It's like 9:59, 9:58.
Jamie, I got to stop you there for a second. Yeah, I want people to realize this, like your future depends on this moment.
I would love to hear just a little bit of the story between nobody believes me, everybody hates my brand, and $1.9 billion to L'Oreal. Like something in there happened. Something went right. Can you kind of talk about how and when you finally caught traction, and what that little season was like?
So we, no after no after no after no after no. And I had entered us in this big beauty competition. It's like this, it's called CEW Beauty Awards, and it's in New York City. And it was, there's 6. So imagine this huge, like exhibition center.
Sure.
And there were 6,000 women walking the floor that are part of this organization, and all the beauty companies from around the world are all there. And it's once a year, and you get a 3-foot booth, right? And all the big products that launch all year long, all these companies enter their product in an award. The hope of being there is that all the 6,000 women walking the floors vote your product to win one of the awards. In my case, that would have meant like, oh, maybe some of the stores will take me in, or maybe I'll get press. And so we're down to like literally almost no money left. And I had entered this competition a while back, entered this annual thing. So I'm there, I'm at my 3-foot table. You're not allowed to leave your 3-foot table, and you're supposed to just demonstrate your product over and over and over for all of the people walking by. So I'm there, and all of a sudden I see QVC has this giant booth there in person. I had never met anyone in person, right?
Okay.
And they've been telling me no for 3 years. Alan Burke says you're not the right fit, all that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I can just like sneak away and meet someone, maybe that will help, right? And I'm sitting there like kind of disassociating myself from what's actually happening. So all these women are walking by and I'm like talking about the product, and I'm not paying attention. I'm really just focused on how can I get to that QVC booth without getting kicked out, because you're not allowed to.
Sure.
So I'm like praying for the right words. I'm praying for the right timing. I keep trying to sneak away, and then the buyers are mobbed over there. So then I go back to my booth, and eventually I get over there. I talked to a buyer at QVC. She knew who I was based on not me, but the company name, because she'd gotten a million samples over the years. And I was like, I think your customers would love our, I just pour my heart out to her. She gave me her card and said, let's set up a meeting sometime. And I thanked her. I went back to my booth. Now, in that moment, I thought, does she really mean it?
Yeah.
Is this just a courtesy? Like, here's my card.
Totally.
So I'm back there now at my booth, continuing demonstrating the product over and over. It was our concealer by Under Eye. And I'm demonstrating it over and over and over, and still not paying attention, really not present, because I'm now replaying everything I wish I would have just said and all that.
Sure.
All of a sudden, a woman comes up to me. And she introduces herself and she says, hello, my name is Miss Lisa Mason. I'm a QVC show host. She'd been a show host for 17 years. I didn't realize that earlier in the night, she'd come up to me and I was demonstrating the product with her. I didn't recognize her, and because I was not paying attention. And I was like, oh, and she goes, I just want to tell you, I think our QVC customers will love your product.
Wow.
And I looked at her and tears started streaming down my face. I think I freaked her out because she didn't know what I knew, which is like,
totally
a lot of business. Everyone has said no.
Of course.
And I think I scared her, and she's like, oh, sugar. I don't have any say over if the product goes. She goes, but I want to let
it's
you
not
know.
a contract.
Yeah, totally. She goes, but I want to let you know, I love your product. And I went up to our head buyer over there and I told her she needs to give you a chance. And I was like, thank you.
Totally.
Freaked her out. So long story short, we had a meeting with the buying team, and QVC's over in Pennsylvania. So I flew out for that. We got a yes. But here's what it meant. And this part of the story, by the way, probably the biggest life lesson, business lesson I learned in the whole journey. We got a yes. And what it meant was we got one shot to go on QVC Live in this 10-minute segment. And we either had to hit their sales goal or not come back. And here's the context, right? We're doing, 2 to 3 orders a day on our website.
Yeah.
I learned that to hit their sales goal in that 10-minute window, we have to sell over 6,000 units of our product. Over 6,000 units, or not. And then I learned that the offer is a consignment offer. So what that meant was I wasn't going to get paid for the product yet. I had to figure out how to pay for, manufacture, ship in over 6,000 units of our concealer. And then if it didn't sell, I would have to take it all back and pay for it, right? So normally, you would never want to say yes to that. There's that saying in business, never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose, and could not afford to lose it. But we also, at this point, it was hundreds of no's. And it was like, okay, well, we can do it this way and go bankrupt, or we're probably going to go out of business anyway. It was that moment. Yeah. So we decided to say yes. Then we had to figure out how to pay for the inventory. So it was over 20 banks said no for an SBA loan. This tiny bank in California gave us an SBA loan just for the amount to cover just the inventory for that one QVC purchase order. So everything was on the line, is my point. Yeah. And we met with third-party consultants. And this is where one of the biggest I think, and most difficult decisions I've ever faced happen. We met with consultants that said to us, and they help so many people sell their product on QVC or in stores, and they help a lot of people, and they're amazing, and they give you the best advice they know. And they said to me, okay, if you want a shot at doing well, here's what you need to do. You need to produce your segment this way and use this type of model, which was all flawless skin.
Of course.
I'm like, okay, but here's my thought. I go, what if I go on and I have real women, like what if I put a model in her 70s and all different shapes, ages, skin tones, and skin problems? I go, what if I take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea? And they're mortified at this idea, right? And they're saying and we would argue about it, because I'd say here's the thing. When we talk about intuition, my intuition said, here's the thing. If I'm sitting at home watching someone show a product and I don't see someone that looks like me,
totally.
How do I know it's going to work for me? Right. And I was like, this doesn't make sense that you have one age and one skin tone and flawless skin. This doesn't, but they were giving me the best advice they knew. They wanted me to win. So I was in this spot, right? So many of us get in this spot in life where our gut's telling us one thing, and then experts are telling us another.
Yeah.
And I flew out to QVC a week before this one big shot, and I got this rental car, and every single day for a week, Jen, I sat in this rental car right out front of the QVC building. It's this huge campus, and I just watched people walk in and out of the front door, and I sat there and prayed and cried and went through all these scenarios in my head, right? Because I was like, okay, because there was so much pressure. I knew the next time I walked through those doors, I was going to walk out either bankrupt or with my whole life changed.
Totally. No in between.
Yeah. And I just thought okay. And there were moments I know you can't fake authenticity. I know that. I know viewers are smart. I knew intuitively that the only way to succeed was to fully show up, and with that authentic mission and why I was doing what I was doing. But oftentimes we know the right thing to do, but it's also the hardest thing to do. And so there were moments in that car where I struggled with doubting my own gut. I thought thoughts okay, well, if I try it their way and then maybe it works.
Sure. Right.
Eventually I'll try it my way. And I just remember this moment in the car where I was okay, it was this big epiphany moment where I was trying to imagine who my customer was and who is going to be watching, because QVC is live television shopping channel, but it's live to 100 million homes. And I had this moment in the car where I was I kept imagining, for whatever reason, a single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was so busy that she forgot she mattered and forgot she was beautiful. And I was I would rather have her turn on if she's going to bless me with 3 seconds of her precious time, I would rather have her turn on the television, see me showing real people that look like her and calling them beautiful and meaning it, even if she bought nothing. I'd rather do that than sell a crap load of product and stand for nothing. And so I knew what I had to do, and I remember, walking in the door of QVC, and I remember walking in the studio. Oh, and by the way, I learned that you're not even guaranteed your 10 minutes. If I went live and all of a sudden it's not going well, and we're a minute or two into the presentation, you might see your clock jump from 8 minutes left down to 1 minute left, that. And I was and so it was so much pressure, and I had on double Spanx. I sweat through the double Spanx. I was in this dress,
of course,
mess, because it was just I remember, and they paired me with the host who had come up to me that day at the show.
Yeah.
And so, thank God, because I was a mess. And I remember the camera went on, and I was shaking, I was trying to do this demonstration on my wrist with
with you're shaking.
Yeah, my whole wrist was like Scooby-Doo when he sees a ghost, and she grabbed my hand and she's thank you, sugar, and she took over, and they pulled my bare face. I'll never forget my bare face bright red before shot. On national TV. And I remember going to the models. I didn't know how it was going, but I knew I wasn't cut yet.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the models, like all ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges and calling them beautiful and meaning it. And we got down to the last, because remember by this point, there were amazing makeup artist brands that are phenomenal. And then there was a lot of other beauty brands, but no one was going on and just saying like, here's my skin challenges and they're beautiful. And if you want to, have your, products that help you look like yourself, in your natural skin, this works. And like, it was a totally different thing than what had been being done. And I remember we had about a minute left in the presentation, and I heard the host say like, the tan shade's almost gone, the deep shade's almost sold out. And I was like freaking out. And then right at the 10-minute mark, this giant sold out sign came up across the screen. I start sobbing on national TV, and then they cut from me and go to like Dyson vacuum or something. And my husband came running through the double doors of the QVC studios, and I'm like sobbing, and I'm like, real women have spoken. He's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like, ah. And that one earring turned into 5 that year, right? So this is that in between space of hundreds of no's so that one airing turned into 5 that year and 101 the next year. And then we did over and still do over 250 live shows a year. And within, I think it was 4 years, we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. And I only share that because it was years of them saying no, and not just no, but you're not the right fit.
A firm no. Like we've really thought it through. We've all discussed it. It's unanimous. It's a hard no.
It's a hard no.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, you are not the right fit, which really just sounds like someone saying you're not enough over and over and over. Right. And
but then to have such success in the exact same space is so special. I mean, that is so incredible. That is such a great story. That is so then what? Like you're telling this great story. I'm just like listening, like I'm in story time.
We eventually got a yes from every single place that had said no. And some of them happened shortly after our QVC success. Others, like in the case of Sephora, took a total of 6 years of no's to eventually get a yes. And so then we kept building and building. And, I had this whole dream of trying to shift the definition of beauty in the beauty industry. And so I was like, we've got to go global. And so out of this office that we finally made it out of our living room. We were in a townhouse. And then we made it out of there and got an actual office space. And then we started growing and growing, and we grew to over 1,000 employees and started launching international. Like I couldn't believe my own success for a while. And I thought at any moment it may come crashing down. So I was working 100-hour weeks for years. I realized like I got to the point where I was addicted to work, and we had tried to have kids for a decade, and I was having miscarriages, and all of these things were going on where my husband and I realized like when he would call me, I thought it was a work call when I'd see his name on my phone. Like it was to the point where work was our whole world. And so part of, I think, learning to trust yourself is also learning when to not trust yourself. And we realized, right, that I didn't trust myself to not keep working the way my parents did growing up, frankly. And then I wanted to try and change history for myself personally. And so that was also part of the reason where I'm like, you know what, I think we need to sell the business or partner with someone. We thought about going public, but in that case, you're still running it as well. And it's kind of all on you. And so it was a big, so we started taking, when I had that realization, we started taking meetings with L'Oreal, and then they weren't interested for a long time. It was 3 years of them saying no to a potential partnership. And back to the rejection is God's protection. By the time they did want a partnership, so did a lot of other people. So it was this moment where all of a sudden L'Oreal wanted to buy the company, and so did a lot of others. And so all of a sudden the price was so much higher than what it would have been. And it was kind of like the stars aligned, and so that was that was 2016. We decided to partner with them. And then I stayed on. They made me their first woman to hold a CEO title in their 100+ year history of any brand.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, and it was kind of a real cool experience. And everyone there is like in couture, head to toe, and all the right handbags, all the right stuff. And in the early years, so in the 3 years they were saying no to us, I would feel like, should I wear cooler clothes to these meetings?
Sure.
But what I realized is because we stayed true to who we were, like I never started, like I was always just maybe odd
Who you are
compared to who I am, compared to their culture. But by year 3 of our meetings, part of why, because we stayed authentic to who we were, because we didn't fit in, we were different than the 40 other brands they own. And so because of that, we had created something so valuable. You know what I mean? And I think
absolutely.
You hear your authenticity is your superpower. And in this case, it was in every way, shape, and form. Like, had we ever start changing who we were to listen to all the advice from the stores telling us no, or even some of the advice from L'Oreal over the years and the meetings that ended with no, if we had made those changes that didn't feel authentic to us, we probably never would have been purchased by them for that much. And we probably never would have built a company that lasted.
Do you know what's so funny about that is you're telling that story? I have such a clear memory because when I was, let's see, honestly, I think I was 22. I might've been 23. I went for the very first time. I don't even know if you know what this is. It's kind of in a bygone era, but there was this huge conference that traveled around, a Christian conference called Women of Faith. I don't know if you ever heard of that or went to it, but it was like an arena conference, like an arena tour. And I'd never heard of it. And well, I'd never heard of it because I think that year was its first or second year. But anyway, it came to the town that I was in. And didn't know the teachers. All the speakers were older. They were all in their like 60s and 70s, and funny and wild and irreverent. Like, I didn't know you were allowed to do that and be a Christian. I hadn't seen that version yet. And I didn't know that women could speak like that. I just never seen anything like it. I'd never seen women in kind of having agency over their own faith and gifts as communicators. That was just news to me. And so anyhow, I remember, so I went that first year to Women of Faith in an arena in Tulsa. And then 2 years later, I went to another arena. And I remember sitting, I was like way up in the nosebleeds, and I'm 24 maybe at that point. And I remember where I was sitting, like to what angle I was facing the stage, when I just had this very clear thought, like, I think that I am going to be on the stage with those women, which was an absurd thing to think, and absolutely absurd. I mean, I was a teacher. I taught 4th grade. I had never even I'd never been in adult work. I worked with 10-year-olds, and then inside marriage, I worked with students. And so at our church, I didn't even know women. Anyhow, it was so clear and it persistent. It just hung on for years. And then, 8 years later, I surprisingly to myself even move into this space as a writer and as a communicator, and then ultimately as a teacher and speaker. And so in 2015, their event, and so I'd seen them back in 1996. So in 2015, the organizers of the event got in touch with me and said, it's the farewell tour. It's the last year of Women of Faith. It had been like 20-year run. And we would love for you to join the tour for its last leg of the race. And I just remember sitting there going, what in the world? I mean, I remember that thought from 20 years earlier that didn't even make sense. It didn't even have a home. I didn't even have a board to Velcro it to. Like, I wasn't even in that world. I didn't even know about it. And so I love listening to your story, and it's giving me such like nostalgia in my own heart for sometimes the ways that if we're still enough and quiet enough, if we'll listen and trust it, there's a knowing that we are given maybe 20 years before we need it. maybe 20 years before it's even going to ever come to fruition. And yet there it is. And thank you for including that part of your story. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for alluding to it over and over in this interview.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.